This is from the Washington Post. Bannon and Trump talk several times per week. Headline: the president's wingman absent in the West Wing. Bannon stays close to Trump. Quote: Bannon and Trump are anything but estranged. Instead, they have remained in frequent contact, chatting as often as several times a week, according to multiple associates of both of them. The conversations are dictated by the whims of the president, who dials his former chief strategist when something he reads, watches, or hears piques his interest. Robert, what's going on here as you understand it?
Much is made about Steve Bannon being the so-called whisperer for President Trump, a friend and advisor, a confidant. But what's more important about Bannon at this moment in the country is that if you compare him to Senator McCain and Senator McCain's recent speech, they are at opposite views of where this country should go, especially with regard to foreign policy. Senator McCain said in his speech about half-baked, spurious nationalism. That was his quote. And he was not referencing not really President Trump's policy in any specific way, but Bannon's worldview. Bannon wants to unravel the American internationalist approach, the embrace of institutions we've seen in the establishment of both parties in recent decades. And for that reason, Bannon's a threat, not because he's in the president's ear, but because he's going against how we, as reporters, as politicians, have always considered the norms of American life, American order in foreign policy.
Jonathan, I want to play a snippet of Bannon describing his position in the president's life. We'll talk about it after this.
The United States Senate in particular has done, I think, a terrible job as appointing President Trump. And let me say something about President Trump. I've had the great honor of being the CEO of the campaign, and then being his chief strategist and senior counselor in the White House, and now I'm proud to say his wingman outside.
The wingman outside. What percentage, this calls for an abject guess on your part probably, what percentage of the Republican Party does that man in that black blazer represent?
The question is it enough in certain states to support primary challenges to establishment Republicans that has Mitch McConnell nervous? I think there are some states where they're not too concerned about these insurgent candidates. Others there are, perhaps Arizona for one. And I think that this is someone who, Steve Bannon obviously has a real sense of self in his own position here, and there's no question he deserves credit for the stretch run of the campaign. He deserves credit for instituting a lot of the policies, particularly in the early months of this White House. But he also had a very fractured relationship with many key players in the White House, Jared Kushner for one, and at times the president, who grew very irritated at the idea that Steve Bannon was getting and perhaps seeking credit for a lot of Trump's successes, which is perhaps the rule number one in the Trump playbook, is you can't take credit for something that he believes he did. He still does talk to Steve Bannon on occasion, but he's also he's given mixed messages how much he wants to support. Let's remember, about a week ago in the Oval Office, in fact, right before this controversy exploded in the Rose Garden, it's about the war dead and the condolence calls, earlier that day in the White House, the president sat with members in the East Room and suggested that, yes, he was in favor of a lot of what Steve Bannon had to do. He could support members of his insurgency. A couple hours later in the Rose Garden, standing next to Mitch McConnell, he said, you know what, I'm probably going to talk Steve out of a lot of that. I'm going to align myself with the establishment Republicans in order to get tax reform done.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.